Welcome back to scrapbookserenity.blogspot.com, and today we are going to put everything together. So these are the pictures that I took of just showing you how it looks once it's all completed. Sorry about the angle, it is hanging on the wall, so it is a little down. I do have a bright light shining on this as well, so you will be able to see that, but that's why it's got some shadows. But I just wanted to show you what the final product looked like before we get into assembly and finishing touches, and then how to make the little banners in between. I didn't have any ribbon, so I wanted to create something that was, went with the theme. So first we're going to put everything together. We take our rosettes and the letters and put them on the banners. I just use my ATG gun and sticky these up and then center them and press down pretty hard. Again, using this type of adhesive, you can take these off and change it out if you want to later. That was one of the things that appealed to me of not actually putting ink on the banners when it came to the letters, because this way I can change it out at any time. So if we're doing like congratulations dad or anything like that, for Father's Day or something, I can go back in and switch these out. So that's why I decided to go that route. And so you just attach all of these letters to the banners using your plan, of course, to make sure that you're using the right one. I put the banners in order as well as the letters, so that way I could just spin right through it. But I used my plan to make sure that it corresponded to what I originally had, because I've got all the different colors on one banner. That was my whole goal. So here it is all laid out, so you can see it. And that's what it looks like. And then I decided to add these roses later, but I ended up adding them to the other small banners and paper that I made instead of adding them here. So the next step was my embellishment on top of this. I used the Close to My Heart stamp set, Key to My Heart. It's a very old stamp set. And then I just used the Distressing Ink Victorian Velvet from Tim Holtz. And I stamped these on a cream colored cardstock, and then I clear embossed them. And that gives it a really nice shine, so it can be seen from far away. And you just heat it up and get everything to set. So you can see that far one on the right that's already done. But you'll see here in a second when these get finished that it gives it a really nice color, and it brought in some pink into all of these browns, which I really liked. So I just put my embossing powder. I'm not smart enough to have one of those Glad Tupperware boxes with all my embossing powders in it. But so you just repeat this process for as many letters as you have. I have 8 letters, so I wanted to put one on every letter, so I just make 4 more. Add the clear embossing powder and then repeat. Now you are going to fussy cut these out, so I did not have a framelits or a die or anything to cut these out, so I actually had to cut them out by hand, which was okay. It went pretty fast since there was only 8 of them. It didn't take too terribly long, so that I was okay with that. Excuse me. So we fussy cut these out, and then I adhere them. So as you can see, it gives it a really nice shine. And then I just nailed them to the sides, kind of offset them a little bit, and folded them in half so that way they would stick up. And see, this one's upside down. Whoops! Pay attention when you're doing letters. That doesn't matter which way it is. Make sure your banner is the right direction. I didn't catch it until I went to hang it on the wall. And so I just kind of fold these in half and then add the snail to each, and then offset them. I was trying to do like one on one side and then one on the other, so that way the hearts were together. And I guess because I just wasn't thinking enough, it didn't work out that way all the way through. So I ended up having to fix a few, and even at that, I think I hung that on the wall and didn't fix one. So, but it didn't really matter. So you can put them however you want. If you want them all on one side, all on the other side, all facing each other, it's just whatever looks good to you. So this just brought in some pink for me, because I was really trying to use that Victorian Velvet from Tim Holtz, because I really love that color. And so this was the perfect way to do that. And because I clear embossed it, then it just popped up the Tim and Holtz color even more. So love that concept. Worked really, really well. So as you can see, I was looking because I got it all on the wrong side, and then even after I put it back on, it's still on the wrong side. So, part of your planning thing, I forgot to plan that step. So, but it turned out really well. And then I go on to the banners in between. I didn't have any ribbon that corresponded with these colors. So what I did is I cut cards or paper, just regular paper, at 2.5 inches by 5 inches. So when you cut it at 2.5 by 5, you're going to score it at an inch at the top to give you room for your actual twine. You're going to fold that over the twine. So you just cut these at 2.5 by 5. And this was a really great way of making my own little banners. So I really enjoyed this. So I used 3 different designs. I used this design, the map design, and then another postage design. And all of them are exactly the same. They're cut at 2.5 by 5. And I, looked at how many spaces I was going to have in between, and then I cut that many off. So just depending on how long yours is will depend on how many you need. So then what you do is you take your scoreboard and you score them at an inch if you want it as big as mine. Do this on the back, and if you want it a little bit longer, then you could score it at a 1/2 inch, and that'll still leave you enough room. But I like the little pocket that it makes because I only put glue on the very edge, and I can slide these up and down the twine. So it just depends if you want them a little longer. Then in order to get the banner, you're going to fold from the right to the left, and then you're going to cut from the right to the left. So fold right to left, and then cut from right to left. And that works really well, and it gives you this nice little banner look without having to really do anything. Now when I get to the map pieces, I did not want to cut away all of that. So I ended up just cutting it up the middle and then going towards the edge, from each edge to the middle where I cut, so that way it didn't take away from my element on the bottom, because I didn't want to get rid of all of that. And that worked out really well. And I end up using, I believe, all of these. So once you're done with that, then I decided that I wanted to add an embellishment on top of this. So in order to add an embellishment on top of this, I went with a stamp set called Trust God by Stampin' Up. And what I do is I stamp these in Tim Holtz, color is it? Oh, Vintage Photo. So Vintage Photo, stamp these in Vintage Photo, and then clear emboss them. And the reason why you're clear embossing them is because we are actually going to add more distressing ink to them later. And if you're not adding that, if you're not embossing them, then you won't be able to do that. So I used the punch that corresponded with each of the different stamps that I had, so whatever stamp set you decide to use. Now from far away you cannot read this very well, but I was okay with that because it was more of a close-up, and from far away it still looks good, even though you really can't read it. So it was important that you make sure to emboss them if you're going to add distressing ink on top of it, because that embossing it will resist the ink. So it was really nice. And the reason that I do this one at a time all the way across instead of just doing multiples is because I am punching them all out, as you can see here. So we are going to add these to our banners that we made, and we're just going to use Tim Holtz Antique Linen all over the entire card, so that you've made. And then we're going to use tea dye just around the corners. So first is Antique Linen, and then tea dye all the way around. So, and you want to make sure that your Antique Linen is, you don't leave any white space. You want to cover these up if you're going with the same color theme that I went with. And just make sure to cover them completely, and then sponge the edges. I'm just using makeup sponges for these. So you just sponge all of the edges, and it gives it a really nice, look, and it blends it in with all the browns that I used instead of just having it on this cream colored cardstock. And because, like I said, we embossed it, then this ink is not, affecting the ink that is already there because it's embossed. So it's a great way to make sure that whatever you stamp stays in place, other than using stays on or something like that. And it gives it a little extra element. So once you have all of these complete, then you're going to add them to your banners that we made. Unless you're using ribbon, you can add them to ribbon as well. That's what I did before. I attached these with pop dots or dimensionals. So I just used the little square ones from Michael's and put one in each corner, and then line these up at the 3-inch mark, so that way they were all the same. So even though they're different designs, different shapes, different sizes, they're all lined up at the 3-inch mark. So now it's time to put it together. So you have to go down and then up when it comes to your string, and then that way you can add in your banners. So I added the first banner at the top on the left, and I slip knotted the end to hang on the wall. It just made life a lot easier. So I'm just using my ATG gun on the very edge of this, and I push down, and then I add the next banner, down, then up, and then I add another corresponding banner that I made. So you just fold this over the twine, and then it gives a nice little pocket that you can slide it back and forth. And then I added the little roses on for a little bit more embellishment and to bring in that kind of rose color I used with the hearts. So this is how you complete your banner, just adding, the banners to the twine, and then adding your quote ribbon or other banners that you made to each of these. So it turned out really nicely. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoyed watching these videos and learning how to create your own banners. You could actually do this all on paper if you wanted to. You wouldn't have to have the canvas banners, but it's just whatever you have. It was a lot of fun to do. I learned a few things. I learned that the paper banners were really nice, and I liked those and how to create those. So it wasn't too bad, wasn't too complicated, and it gave it a nice look other than the Serenity banner where I used, glittery type ribbon. So I'm glad that you were able to stop by, and I'm going to give you a final view here in just a minute of each of the letters again. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And you can always visit my blog at scrapbookserenity.blogspot.com. So here it is hanging on my wall. It's above my entryway. And you can see when I'm taking pictures up close the actual words on the things that we added to the banners, to the small banner paper banners that we made. But from far away you really can't tell, you just see the images. But because we popped them up, it gives them some nice dimension even from far away. Again, thank you for stopping by, and if you have any questions, let me know. Have a great day.